Jacob Stimmel, and I'm from Bulls Gap, Tennessee. And I was looking for a house, and Jason, when I talked to him, it seemed like he knew a lot about what he was talking about, and he was a big help with anything I ever needed. It's my first time buying a house, so I didn't know what I was getting into. It was a good experience. I closed actually a week earlier than planned. Anytime I needed help with anything or had any questions, he'd answer right away and help me learn a lot too. I would gladly recommend anybody. Y'all are a big help, and if I ever go to buy a house again, I'd go with y'all again. My name is Jacob Stimmel, and I got into my first home with the team at SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
You're full of yourself today, Connie. You're full of yourself today, and I love it. Thank you very much for having the enthusiasm that you do. It helps me a lot. So it's all good.
Well, we are fired up to have you here with us today. Our topic is going to be one of your all-time favorites, and I can't wait to sit under the learning tree as we learn more about Danny Hodge. He is our topic today. But before we talk about Danny, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about this past weekend. AEW presented their very first pay-per-view from Philadelphia. It was AEW Dynasty, and I know you had a front row seat for some of that show. I wanted to see what you thought of the pay-per-view, Jim.
Well, I enjoyed my part of it. I was on the first match of the night with Will Ospreay
and Kevin Knight, the debuting Kevin Knight. It's his AEW pay-per-view debut.
Yeah, he's talented.
Mm-hmm.
He's talented, no doubt about it. So, it's all good. But I thought I didn't get to see the entire pay-per-view. I left the arena and went back to the hotel. That's what you get when you're a 50-year guy. You can pull your stunts. It's all good. So it was good. It was I heard it was long. Somebody told me it was like 12:30 till they got out of there. 12:30 a.m. And I think that might be a little bit long, but that's just me talking. So, but in any event, it was the match I enjoyed. Ospreay and Kevin Knight were good. They're good. They're both very good. So it was fun in that regard. Did Swerve win the title?
Swerve did not win the title. I'm glad you brought that up. Jon Moxley has retained, and the Young Bucks have returned. And as you and I are recording, it is Wednesday morning. I assume that we're going to hear what the hell happened and what's causing all this tonight on Dynamite. But that did create a bit of a debate. And Tony Khan was even asked at the post-pay-per-view presser about this. I think the question was something like, hey, do you consider or do you listen to fan feedback on social media and things like that? Do you take fans' opinions into consideration? Because I think most fans believed Swerve was going to win the world title for the second time here.
I did.
Yeah, I did too. That did not happen. And I have to agree with Tony that the return of the Bucks does make it intriguing. Like, how are the Bucks aligned with the Death Riders? I guess we've got to watch TV tonight and find out. That makes sense. But do you think with the benefit of hindsight, it was a missed opportunity to not put the title on Swerve?
Arguably, yes. But was it a deal breaker? Not really. Swerve is entrenched himself pretty well in that whole scenario. And he's done a good job of building his brand, shall we say. So it'll be interesting to see what's going to go down on Dynamite and how they follow up on all that stuff. So good stuff. It's all good stuff.
The second match on the show this past weekend was the Hurt Syndicate beating Big Bill and Brian Keith. And I came to like a personal realization during that match. I think the Hurt Syndicate might be like my new favorite tag team. I never really thought about the similarities between them and like the Steiner brothers, but hear me out on this. I know they're not actually brothers like the Steiners were, but I am saying, hey, two big badass dudes with a legit amateur background who, if a real shoot fight broke out in the entire arena, you might put your money on those two guys to best them all and walk out. That might actually be the way to describe Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, two bona fide badasses. I love the Hurt Syndicate. And I even wondered, hey, if they would have gotten together 20 years ago. So instead of us becoming more acclimated with them as single stars, if they were packaged as a tag team from the beginning, I think we'd be talking about that tag team now, 20 years later, as one of the all-time great tag team acts. Don't you think?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. They got a lot of good qualities. There's no doubt about that. I agree with you, Conrad, on that deal. It makes sense to me. So yeah, it was, the Hurt Syndicate has a lot of upside, and they're legit. You know, even from the standpoint of their manager having just a good feel for the game,
credibility.
Yeah, MVP was he was a star. He's been a star for quite some time.
Yes,
I remember sitting at a bar in Pittsburgh at the Marriott, I believe it was, and they had a, you know, it was just a situation where, you know, that I was asked to give feedback to MVP, and how I would perceive him to be going forward. So it's good stuff. I like their unit. The issue is that nobody has the market on tag teams. Tag teams need help, and right now they aren't getting it. So, but that's the way in pro wrestling. That's kind of the way it is. So I'm happy that they're doing well. You know, Shelton Benjamin was one of my recruits back in the day. That all-star cast of talents. So I'm happy that they're doing well. You want to see guys do good.
Yes, you do, and they're doing great right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So
let's talk about another tag team. We saw the Adam Copeland, or I'm sorry, the Cope FTR thing maybe come to a head. They were a part of a trios match against the Death Riders. They call themselves Rated FTR, but it felt like at the end of the night, well, that's no more. It looks like Cope is no longer a part of Rated FTR. Where do you think this is heading? I mean, we are getting to the prime AEW pay-per-view season. Of course, we know Double or Nothing is next month, and before you know it, All In will be here.
Right.
Do you think what we saw this past Sunday night has implications for maybe All In Texas?
I think so. Absolutely. I don't know why it wouldn't be. FTR is marketable as hell. They're a good team. They have they have legs, shall we say? So yeah, I'm a big fan of their work, and I was surprised that they turned on Cope as they did. It seemed like it worked out well for me. You know, it was a interesting development. So and where it's going to go from here, who knows? One would think conflict is at hand. And Cope needs some help. He might need Christian back on his team somewhere down the road. And is so, I think that would make both Jay Resso and Cope very happy to get back on the same page. So that's where I think that's headed. But we'll see how the timeline. Maybe we find out on Dynamite this week or on Collision. But one thing's for sure, it caught me by surprise, the whole turn and all that stuff. So it was good. It was good stuff, Connie.
Some more good stuff over the weekend as we saw Bandito become the Ring of Honor champion once again, besting Chris Jericho. I think a lot of people assumed that maybe the title went on Chris Jericho from a Ring of Honor perspective in the hopes of maybe landing a Ring of Honor TV deal. We haven't heard of any announcements just yet, but no matter who, what, where, why, when, Bandito being the Ring of Honor champion, boy, that makes a lot of sense. Checks a lot of boxes. One of the more dynamic performers in the game today. Did you get a chance to see this match? And what do you think of Bandito as the Ring of Honor champion?
I like it. I like it a lot. I think Bandito's very talented, and somebody that we can aspire to enjoy, if that's a term. So I'm a big fan of their work, of Bandito's work, and we'll have to wait and see where it's going to go, but it seems to me like it's got a nice future. At least that's my take on it.
We also need to mention the incredible three-way that people are still talking about: Kenny Omega, Ricochet, and Speedball Bailey. This was for the AEW International title. And one of my favorite spots, I guess we'll call it the Karate Kid spot. Ricochet sold that kick, that crane kick, better than I've ever seen before. Three incredible performers. We saw some really innovative bumps in this. I had a little house party to watch the pay-per-view, and there were multiple times where we're like, oh my God, I've never seen that before. These guys are creative. They're artists out there. For a lot of people, this was maybe their first big time introduction to Speedball Bailey. What do you think of the match, and what do you think of Speedball in AEW?
Well, I like Speedball. I like Speedball. He showed up at catering a couple of weeks ago, and I think isn't he the boyfriend of Veda Scott? I think he is.
Yeah, I believe they're together. Yes,
I believe they're together. So that's good. So they're doing well. It's nice to have a sane wrestling couple. As we both know, that those are not mutually exclusive terms, quite frankly. So, but he's a talented kid. He's just not very big. He's not got a lot of size to him. If that matters, it may not matter a damn bit. And if it doesn't matter a damn bit, then so why did I bring it up? But he's a talented kid, no doubt about that.
we also touched on it at the top of the show, I guess. John Moxley and Swerve Strickland came to a conclusion with a little help from the Young Bucks. Of course, it was like a no DQ match, so the Young Bucks interference didn't really change anything. Moxley retains. He picks up the win. What do you think is, I mean, if you were guessing, do you think this Death Rider storyline comes to a head at All In, or is there another story in mind, do you think?
It's hard to say, but it would not surprise me that that this whole scenario has legs again. It seems like Moxley is the maestro of this orchestra, and if that's the case, if it is the case, then so be it. It's going to work out pretty well. But the Death Riders is a good gimmick. It's a good idea, and so I like the Death Riders scenario. I like it a lot. So we'll see how it pans out at the end of the day. But I just thought that Moxley might lose the title and it didn't happen. And I'm not complaining about that, but it seemed like it was a false narrative. I thought that it would be a Swerve would get the title, and he's been a good champion. So we'll see how it works out. That's a great thing about episodic television. If you don't know, and there's no leakage as far as the scenario is concerned, then we're all better off, quite frankly. I don't need to know. You don't need to know. None of us need to know. We're just, how are we reacting to it? And so we'll see how it pans out. it's going to be very interesting to see as time goes forward.
Hey, I do want to ask you, as we're talking about AEW and Swerve Strickland, there's been a big dust up online about Swerve Strickland and Booker T. They've had a big back and forth. Have you seen any of that?
A little bit, nothing to pass a quiz on. I'm not sure what their issues are, but
Yeah, that's all cool. I just know that if I didn't bring it up to you, people would say, "Hey, why didn't you ask about the Swerve Booker T thing?" I do want to ask you about some other big news that's in the wrestling space right now. I don't know if you saw this, but Kevin Owens announced on Friday that he is going to miss WrestleMania because unfortunately he's got to go have pretty major surgery. We've been led to believe that this is a neck, back, spine issue. Anytime you're doing something there, boy, it is a precarious spot to be in.
Yeah.
And it's serious business. And you've seen a lot of careers sort of ebb and flow around that neck injury thing. We don't know what's next for Kevin. What should we hope for or expect with Kevin? What do you think is next?
Well, I'm a big fan of his work, to be honest with you. And a lot of that stems from the fact that he grew up in Quebec, and he allegedly was learned to speak English by listening to JR over the years. So that gives me a connection, shall we say. But he's a hell of a hand. And, all I can hope for is that he gets healthy sooner than later and gets back into his game. He's really a talented guy, old school wrestling guy. And I'm happy that he's getting this issue addressed, which is what he needs to do. You got to get healthy. You just got to get healthy. And that's what he's trying to get done, is to get healthy. So let's see how it works out for him. And we wish him nothing but the very best. And we'll see how that pans out in the future for Kevin Owens.
I would encourage you, if you're a big fan of Kevin Owens, tweet Kevin Owens some of your favorite Kevin Owens moments. I can't imagine what's going through his head right now, but I know it's probably a terribly disappointing time in his career and life right now, and it's weighing heavy on his mind. And if you can be in bright spot for him on social media, boy, that wouldn't be a change of pace, would it?
No, heck no.
Positivity. Come on now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Conrad. We can't share the positivity enough with these guys that are injured. And when you talk about an injury that is regarding the neck and the spine, that's a big deal. It's a big deal. So let's pray for him and let's hope that he gets better and he kicks ass on his return back to prominence, shall we say. He's just an old school wrestling guy. And, he's had some good legs. He's done well. And so I'm a big fan of his work. He's very believable. And so better for him. Let's just hope that he gets healthier quicker than not.
I feel like we should also mention that this does create an opportunity for someone, because we know that Randy Orton was supposed to be the fellow wrestling Kevin Owens. But now that means Randy Orton is available for WrestleMania. I do have some theories as to who that might be. I want to bring those to your attention, Jim. There's been lots of speculation online, but it sounds like somebody needs to pack their boots for WrestleMania. And speaking of boots, we can't wait to tell you about Tecovas. Hey man, you ever wondered if you could pull off boots with your personal style? Well, you owe it to your feet to pull on a pair of Tecovas. Being confident isn't about being different. It's about being yourself. Well, find comfort in the traditions of the West and confidence from making it your own. Honor the West by leaving your own boot print. Tecovas crafts quality Western boots for everyone, from generational ranchers to lifelong cowboys and even first-time boot buyers like myself. By the way, every one of Tecovas boots are handcrafted with over 200 meticulous steps for broken-in comfort that comes right out of the box. Whether it's a long day or a big night, your Tecovas are built to last and impress. You see, there's no compromise between quality and style. And I have to tell you, I wasn't sure that I could pull these boots off. I wasn't even sure if boots are for me, but I snagged a pair and I wear them to work all the time. They look fantastic. I'm rocking them with my jeans. I even wore them with my dress pants. But my biggest shock was I hooked Dad up with not one pair, but two pair. He wears them all the time. My parents had a pipe burst in their house earlier this year. And one of the things that was damaged was my dad's new pair of Tecovas boots. Like the entire room flooded. Well, Dad set them outside and dried them out, and he's going to still get to use them. They're still fine. But not only that, the insurance adjuster came over and said, "Oh, they messed up your Tecovas. I'll make sure they replace that." Dad got a second pair of Tecovas. I can't make this up. That's a real story. Go right now and get 10% off at tecovas.com/grillingjr when you sign up for email and text. That's 10% off at tecovas.com/grillingjr. That's tecovas.com/grillingjr. That's TECOVAS.com/grillingjr. Tecovas.com/grillingjr. See site for details. Tecovas. Point your toes west.
Conrad, I've mentioned this more than one occasion that one of my favorite TV shows is Yellowstone.
Yes.
And in Yellowstone, they wear Tecovas boots.
Yes, they do.
So that tells me all I need to know. They're really good at what they do, and they wear well. And I've been in the boot business over my career, and Tecovas fits the bill. They fit the bill. There's no doubt about it. I saw on the line the other day, it's interesting, WWE Hall of Famer Miss Jackie Moore is a Tecovas boot customer and does a great job of representing the brand. So good for her. Good for her. She's Miss Texas at one point in time, known as Miss Texas, and she's done a great job of building a brand with Tecovas, and we appreciate her efforts in that regard, and we appreciate her time and her time, her efforts. It's just great.
And we appreciate those boots. Check them out. Tecovas.com/grillingjr.
There you go.
Speaking of boots, Jim, somebody's got to pack some boots for WrestleMania because they're going to be facing Randy Orton, or so it seems. And if he's ready to come back, you never know who it could be. I'm talking about Rusev. I'm talking about Aleister Black. There's been lots of speculation that people who used to work with WWE, who later worked with AEW, who have now since been released, they might be in this match against Randy Orton. I know that a returning superstar means that, well, they'll probably pick up a win over a legend like Randy Orton, but I'm sure Randy's game to have a great match. If you were a betting man, do you think we see Rusev, Aleister Black, Ray Phoenix, someone completely different? What do you expect Randy Orton to do at WrestleMania, Jim?
I like your idea of Aleister Black. I've been a big fan of his work for quite some time, and so him being involved in the storyline and him being able to work with about anybody is good for me. So I would, if I had to lean on somebody, it would be Aleister Black, and he's just a very talented guy. Very talented guy. His work in AEW I thought was very good, and it worked for me. So we'll see how it works out.
I, for one, am looking forward to WrestleMania weekend, and I know you are too, Jim. You're going to be at WrestleCon April 17th through the 20th.
All right.
Shaking hands, signing autographs, taking pictures, and seated right next to your longtime great personal friend, Jerry the King Lawler. These guys were the voices of your childhood. Many would debate, and I don't even think it is a debate at this point, the greatest broadcast duo in the history of pro wrestling, and you can go meet them maybe for the last time at WrestleCon Las Vegas, April 17th through 20th. You can go ahead and get all the information now at WrestleCon.com. You always have fun when you're at WrestleCon with Jerry Lawler, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. We tell great stories. We have fun. We laugh. It's good. And we enjoy the company that we both get the chance to keep. Because as you said, it sounds morbid, the spoken word, but you never know how long we're going to be together. We're neither one of us are young kids. So I'm looking forward to the 3 days in Vegas, signing autographs and taking pictures and all that good stuff. It's just going to work out real well. So I'm excited about that. I don't even know where in the hell where is WrestleCon? Do we know?
It's in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Do we know where?
WrestleCon.com has all the information.
Aha.
Jim sometimes will take bookings and not even know where the hell he's going, but he'll be at the Westgate in Las Vegas. And if you've never been to the Westgate, it is a huge resort. And I believe there's like a tram in and out. I looked at this a few years ago when we were doing StarCast out there. It
Yeah.
is a great spot, and they're open Thursday through Sunday. That's next Thursday through Sunday, WrestleMania week. And it wouldn't be WrestleMania, and WrestleMania wouldn't be complete without good old JR and Jerry the King Lawler. Go see them at WrestleCon.com.
Absolutely.
We want to hit a couple more stories before we get to the big topic today, which is Danny Hodge. One of the things that had everybody abuzz this past Friday, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a promo that seemingly went off the rails, and it feels like everyone has an opinion. We're talking about Charlotte Flair going in ring with Tiffany Stratton. Wade Barrett was there for a reason we don't know, but he was there. And they're going back and forth, and WWE, seemingly, according to Vince Russo, was piping in boos. They've done this for Dominic Mysterio before, and it worked effectively to get the fans booing. But every time Charlotte would move the mic to her mouth, here came the boos. But maybe more importantly, what people were talking about is just one day removed from Charlotte pouring her heart out on the Sherry Shepherd show and becoming very emotional, talking about not Charlotte Flair, but Ashley Flair in her real life and her untimely divorce and how she was sort of embarrassed about this and she didn't want anyone to know. And it was a big secret. And of course, it came public the day after she won the Royal Rumble, and here it came. And now she had to just live in that reality. But it was a very emotional interview. And just one day later, the babyface in this scenario, Tiffany Stratton, had some pretty harsh comments that in real life would have bothered the real life Ashley, but she said them to the character Charlotte. And as a babyface, got those lines in, then threw the mic down and tucked tail and powdered out of the ring and scurried to the back. And I said to myself, was that babyface behavior? So people really don't know what to make of this, Jim. What do you think of these sort of worked shoot or maybe just off script shoot promos? Like, do these ever work and draw money in wrestling?
Sometimes they can. Sometimes they can, Conrad. And both of those ladies are very talented. And so, we'll see where there's a story there someplace.
Yeah, I think everybody is jazzed up about the match. I don't know if that was the right way to get there, but it felt like, beforehand, nobody was really looking forward to the match or talking about the match. It's weird because I think at first people thought, oh, this could be a dream match. And maybe people thought that because they're both athletic and have blonde hair and do a moonsault.
Right.
But now that we're actually getting the match, it felt like people weren't really into the build and weren't really digging it. But now there's this big debate about who went off script and whether or not they went off script. And I've even seen Dave Meltzer suggest that if this sort of thing had happened in AEW, that instead of the heat being on the performers, the heat would have been placed on Tony Khan and AEW saying, hey, he knew that this was a problem and he didn't get in front of it, because that was the narrative we heard about Punk and the Young Bucks, or, Punk and Adam Page or whatever. We've all heard that before, where instead of the individual talents being blamed, it was the company. But when it happens, the same thing happens in WWE. Well, we're going to blame their performers and the company wasn't involved. I find that fascinating, that discourse. What do you make of that?
I'm a little uncomfortable with it, to be honest with you. This doesn't seem like all the dots are connecting. But certainly the fact that these ladies are rivals, they're both very talented, and they both have something to prove at WrestleMania. And how that works out remains to be seen. But I'm looking forward to the match without a doubt. I don't know how much, with me being at WrestleCon, how much I'm going to be able to see of these WrestleMania matches. But I'm certainly excited about the opportunity to see these contests and hopefully tune in and enjoy the action in the ring, because that's where it all starts. That's where it always starts and always ends, is in the ring. And whether it be Charlotte and Tiffany Stratton or whatever, you know, they just, I'm a big fan of both their work. And I think that they're going to do a good job. I think this is going to all work out as it's supposed to work out. And we'll see. We'll see how it works out. You know, it's not going to be it's not a layup. That's for damn sure.
I can't wait until the real story comes out one day. This is going to be something that people are going to gravitate to, because everybody knows that in wrestling we love the dirt, but we also love feeling like ourselves. And you're going to get to start to feeling more like you with a little help from our tag team partner, Nick Aldis. Let's take a listen. Hey guys, did you know the average testosterone level in men in the United States has dropped by 1% every year since 1999? That means today's man has significantly less testosterone than previous generations, and it's not just age. Everyday exposure to chemicals in our food and our grooming products, and even the environment, is accelerating this decline. You can't always avoid these factors, but you can take action to protect your health and performance. And really, that's where Test X9 comes in. By the way, this message is brought to you by my pal, Nick Aldis. That's right. He is the WWE SmackDown General Manager and the former world champion. And Test X9 is clinically supported. It's an all-natural testosterone support formula built to help you fight back and perform at your peak. Test X9 combines 9 powerful, clinically studied ingredients shown to naturally stimulate testosterone production while blocking excess estrogen conversion. You'll find no fluff, no gimmicks, just real ingredients backed by science, with independent studies for each one available directly on the product page, so you can verify the results for yourself. Who does that? But Test X9 goes beyond just testosterone. With magnesium activation technology, it's designed to help improve strength, energy, recovery, and even sleep, giving you more power, sharper focus, and the resilience to take on whatever life throws your way. Nick Aldis knows what it takes to both succeed physically and mentally at the highest level, and Test X9 was built with that same mindset. Whether you're training hard, chasing goals, or just want to feel like your best self again, Test X9 is the edge you've been looking for. Head right now to legacysupps.com. That's legacysupps.com and use the code JR to get 10% off your order. That's code JR for 10% off. Stop the decline with Test X9.
Have that testosterone because of who's married to. One of my favorites of all time, and Mickey James. So,
no doubt.
Yeah, that's great. She's a keeper. And he's a keeper.
No doubt about it. They one of those other great wrestling power couples that you were alluding to before.
Correct.
Hey, very briefly, before we jump into Danny Hodge, because I promise we're going to get there, I want to ask, here we are about 10 days out from WrestleMania. And when the final curtain falls on Sunday night, after John Cena and Cody Rhodes has come to a completion, someone's hand has been raised. Do you think we'll see a new champion? Is John Cena going to break, quote unquote, Ric Flair's record and become a 17-time world champion? Or do you see the Cody train continuing? If you were a betting man, what would you put your smart money on right now, Jim?
My smart money would be on Cody. I think Cena will scare the hell out of us about winning the title again. But I don't think it'll happen. But I think they'll have a great match. Those guys have great style. they have a comparison of positive comparison. And I'm a big fan of both their work. So, and I just don't see it. I don't see a title change. I see Cody retaining the title and having a hell of a match. You know, Cody's a talented kid. He's had a great run. There's no reason to end it now, in my opinion. So that's how I look at that deal.
Well, we're not going to be ending our talk on Danny Hodge without talking about his backstory. I want to remind everybody that we're talking about a fellow who had what was often described as freakish strength.
Right.
And the result was Hodge became arguably one of, if not the greatest collegiate wrestler in history. You know, if football has a Heisman Trophy, college wrestling has the Hodge Trophy. And even the best wrestler in high school each year is given the Junior Hodge. Before we talk about his professional wrestling career, I mean, his amateur status is still talked about to this day. And
Right.
even in the obituary from the Observer, Dave Meltzer wrote, with the possible exception of Andre the Giant, nobody has had more stories told about him than Danny Hodge. But unlike the stories with Andre, Hodge's stories were not embellished. When you think about just his raw strength and his success in amateur wrestling, can you tell us about either of those?
Oh yeah, you know, my first trip to Louisiana when I was working for McGurk and the Cowboy, my riding partner was Danny Hodge, and he became my regular riding partner on more than one occasion. I was as a kid, Danny Hodge was one of my heroes, and rightfully so. He just was tremendous. I can tell you a lot of stories about Hodge that were real and legit. I remember going into a hardware store in my hometown of Westville, Oklahoma, where Danny, where they're doing a spot show back in the days when spot shows were popular. And we went to a hardware store, and this guy says, I heard you could break pliers. There wasn't no hearing about breaking pliers. Hodge broke pliers, and he broke a bunch of pair of pliers, much to the chagrin of the hardware store owner, quite frankly. So he had all this. He had great. You know, he just was amazing, and how he manifested the strength of his hands and his tendon strength in his forearms, like nobody else I'd ever seen, and I hadn't seen it to this day since. He just was spectacular, and he was so spectacular that it was hard to believe that he had that power in his grip. It was just scary. Hodge was scary, and I said many times he had a ability to convey that strength to the audience, and did a great job. I mean, he was absolutely amazing, and especially for a guy that was 200 pounds, somewhere in that neighborhood. Uh, he uh, he just was tremendous, and a nice man. Nice man. I often wondered how he would have been, and he looked like a baby face. He was a baby face. He just had uh, a ability to take care of himself. And if he had been a little bit bigger, Hodge probably would have been the NWA World Champion at some point in time. He was that good. He was that good. So, but I love Danny. I think about him all the time. He's one of my heroes. He's
I do want to talk about his pro wrestling, but briefly, you mentioned the pliers, and I've heard that story, but I never saw it. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but we did see the apple trick. He was famous for holding an apple in his hand and turning it into applesauce. He
All right.
actually did that on live TV at 74 years old on ESPN during the 2006 NCAA wrestling tournament broadcast. But there's actually videos of him crushing an apple with his bare hands over on YouTube, like on 2009, 2010, 2011, even 2014. So even when he was a much older man, well into his 80s, he could still just squeeze that apple and turn it right into applesauce. That almost feels like something in a Popeye cartoon, but it's real for Danny Hodge, right?
Absolutely real. There's no gimmick to it whatsoever. I remember being at a Cauliflower Alley event in Iowa back in the day, where Hodge showed up in the 70s, and he would just pulverize apples, just pulverize them. But he was a unique cat. There just wasn't anybody else like Danny Hodge in pro wrestling that I ever met. And he just did a great job. And he was before all the big money. He I'm just trying to put my thoughts together. He just was so believable. And
speaking of believability, let me just help you on the credibility piece. If you're not, and listen, I have to admit, I didn't see any of Danny Hodge. I was born in 1981, but just hear this out. He was basically the NWA light heavyweight champion. Back then they called it the junior heavyweight champion from 1960 until he retired in 1976. Now, certainly there were little bits where he would drop it and win the belt back, but there was a series of 5 or 6 years where it felt like Ric Flair was just the forever NWA champion. And Danny Hodge did that, but for 16 years. And Danny didn't just do that for the NWA. He defended that title in Japan and even in the AWA. I'm curious, why do you think, was it just based on size? Was there anything he could have done about that? Like when you say he could have been the NWA champion, I just look at all the success he had as the junior heavyweight champion for over a decade. I mean, damn near 16 years.
right.
What kept him from adding a little bit of size and just becoming the world champion? Or was that a more political position by that point?
More political position by that point, and it also showed what Danny believed in. He believed in himself. He believed in his size, and he was just there was just nobody else like him that I ever was around. And I've been around 50 years, Conrad. Danny was just so unique and so different that it was just it's just hard to compare Danny. And I seen him have great matches with 300-pound guys, and he did it willingly with no fear. I mean, more often than not, we found that Danny was revered by his larger opponents, and they were more scared of him than he was of them by any stretch. And that's how that worked out.
Another fun little piece of business is that he becomes the junior heavyweight champion, which at the time is the number 2 belt in the world,
Right.
just 10 months into his career. So imagine starting wrestling and 10 months later, you're one of the top dogs. The only other guy I can think about like that is Kurt Angle. So to just make that association, I'm not pretending that they were the same athlete or the same in-ring performer, but just enjoying so much success so early in their career. That's the parallel I would probably draw. And really, the only reason the reign came to an end, as I understand it, is he was in an auto accident
Right.
that broke his neck. But
Right.
by and large, most people agree when they see the accident, how did he walk away alive? What do you think of him getting so much success so quickly? I mean, to be this one of the top stars in the world, 10 months in, that level of credibility is not common.
No, it isn't. And it was all well deserved. All well deserved by any stretch. Leroy McGurk was a shooter, national champion at Oklahoma State University. And he was just special. And Leroy found another Leroy in Hodge. And they were just absolutely phenomenal together creatively. Danny was not a booker, shall we say, but he was something else. I just love the guy. I mean, I had two heroes when I was a kid, Mickey Mantle and Danny Hodge. And just simple as that. And Mickey Mantle, of course, was one of the great power players in the Yankees back in the day, number 7. And so then we took that forward. And, Danny's his car wreck, he fell asleep and had a terrible crash. And he just was lucky to live through that ordeal. And he broke his neck, and he was able to pull himself up from the crash scene and somewhere, I think in Louisiana. So it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. He was just an extraordinary human being. As I said before, if he had not been such a nice man, there's no telling what damage he would have done. Because he just didn't have a mean bone in his body, and he never lost an amateur match. He went to school at OU, Oklahoma University, and he just didn't lose. In a shoot way, he just didn't lose. So I've always been you'll not find a bigger fan than me in Danny Hodge, because I grew up on Danny Hodge, and it just was all so successful and such a wonderful memory for me, even to this very day. And I'm 73 years old. I just I can't say enough good things about Danny Hodge and what he, I think I went to, they have a trophy statue, more specifically, in Perry, Oklahoma. The only other tribute to Perry is Jake Hager was from Perry. And he was also another former Oklahoma University alumni. So they grow big time in Perry, the wrestling capital of the world. And it just worked out great. I was lucky that I got to grow up in that era and enjoy my time with Danny. Danny was a funny guy. He had a sweet tooth that was unbelievable. So when he wanted a milkshake, my fat ass would be looking to find a milkshake place, Dairy Queen or whatever. But that was him. He just was such a simple, plain, good man. And I loved him for all those things. He was just great to me. I had a situation one time with a guy named Bob Sweetan. And Sweetan was a bully and a piece of shit. So he's no longer alive. He got deported and sent from the States to back to Canada back in the day. But he was just horrible, and he was a bully, and he hurt people, including referees like me. Black eyes and bloody noses and chipped teeth and things of that nature. But when I was bemoaning my ailments, Danny tuned in, and he took my cause.
Wow.
And so they had some matches, and the matches were scary, painful, just terrible. And Sweet Tan was a 300-pounder, and Hodge owned him like he was a redheaded stepchild. And he did it out of loyalty to me, but that's the kind of man that he was. He didn't like bullies. There were bullies in the firehouse where he grew up in Perry, and he was not a fan of bullies. And you got to wonder, when you got a guy that's got that kind of strength, what the hell are we thinking about here? He scared people. Hodge scared people because there's nobody else like him. I've never met anybody. The closest person I've met, Conrad, you mentioned him, was Kurt Angle. That was the closest comparison I could give you on Danny Hodge. And Kurt was the fastest. Kurt and Jack Briscoe were the two fastest developing talents back in their day. And both of them were well deserved. But nobody compared to Hodge. Nobody whatsoever.
I do want to ask you, when we're talking about just strength, I mean, you've been around so many strong men, some of the strongest men in the history of the world, guys like Doug Furness. You were with him in Smoky Mountain and certainly in the WWF. And Mark Henry, you spent a lot of time with him in WWE, right. Later AEW. And then even in WCW, Bill Kazmaier. I mean, these are guys who are all-time strength guys. But when it came to just things they could do with their bare hands, like we've all seen Mark Henry fold a frying pan, which just sounds like a make-believe sentence, but he did it on camera. We've seen it. But as far as just hand strength, could anybody compare with Danny Hodge? I mean, it was out of this world, even compared to those guys, right?
Yeah, nobody compared to Hodge. Hodge was in a class by himself. And like I said before, the fact that he was so amenable, that he had a kind soul, speaks for itself. Again, if Hodge had been a bully or had a bad attitude, he would have been impossible to handle. Impossible to handle. I mean, I've seen matches where he had matches where he just was not happy unless he was competing, but he also was happy in a good match. He wanted to have great matches. And the guys like Billy Robinson and others that were great talents, but Hodge was special. He was special. There's nobody else like him. If you got Gerald Briscoe on the show, he would say the same thing. There's nobody else like Hodge. Nobody. He made people squeal. He scared people. And I loved him for all the good things that he was about.
Well, something else that we both love is watching a little sports, and sports is more fun when you're watching with PrizePicks. All right, listen up, y'all. PrizePicks really is the best way to get action on sports. In more than 30 states, I'm talking to you, California, Texas, and Georgia. The app is really easy to use, too. You just create a lineup, and all you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats for your shot to win up to $1,000 extra money. PrizePicks truly is the best place to win cash while watching sports. What are you waiting for? Join over 10 million users and sign up today. On PrizePicks, you can mix and match your player projections from different sports, combine your favorite basketball players with your favorite baseball or hockey or esports, and so much more. PrizePicks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your accounts this season. And here's the deal, man. The second half of basketball season is here, and the race to the playoffs is heading up on PrizePicks. Don't miss your chance to cash in as the league's best fight for playoff positioning. All right, so right now it's Tuesday, and I just want to give you an example of what I'm running with tonight. How about Tyrese Halliburton? He's a guard, and I'm saying that my man is going to have more than 2.5 3-pointers tonight. And how about Jason Tatum over at the Celtics? He's going to be on the road against the Knicks, and I'm going to say that he has more than 25.5 points. That's it. Boom. I'm playing. It's happening right now. What are you waiting for? Go download the app today. Use the code GrillingJR, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I want to repeat that. Go download the PrizePicks app today. Use our code GrillingJR, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. I'm really excited for us to spend a little bit of time talking about Danny Hodge, because this is a guy who, we often say this on the show, timing is everything.
Right.
But back in his day, he was even quoted as saying this. Today, people get paid to train for the Olympics. In my day, they were so strict, I couldn't even let people buy me a meal. So if the dynamic was different and he would have been able to financially afford to compete in the Olympics, there's no telling what that could have looked like for him. But an even better, bigger, perhaps, what if MMA had existed back then?
Oh, my God.
I've read reports that he could take a move that doesn't even feel like a submission move and make it a submission move. Simply grabbing your wrist. If he starts squeezing, the choice becomes yours. Should I let him break my wrist and hope I can win with one wrist, or should I go ahead and tap now? When you have that level of unreal grip strength, he would have been a UFC superstar, wouldn't he?
Oh, absolutely. My God. He just came along too soon after the advent of MMA. I talked to Dana White about this before, and Hodge's reputation, Conrad, is far-reaching. He would have been great on an octagon. He was extraordinary. I know we've gone on and on about him today, but golly, there's just nobody like Danny Hodge. Nobody. And there's a lot of tough guys that they wanted to make their reputation by beating Hodge and dominating Hodge. So it's just a matter of,
Danny Hodge would have been the UFC champion forever if he was around. That's what I'm saying. Whereas normally in MMA, you've got to look for some sort of a chokehold or an arm bar or something like that. But he could simply just grab hold of something, and whatever he's got in his hands, you'd like to use it when he lets go. So you got to make a business decision. Can I escape this before it's permanent injury? It's fascinating to think about this guy as almost like a real life member of the Avengers. I mean, think about anything he touches, he crushes. That sounds make believe, but with Danny Hodge, we all saw it. I mean, I didn't see it live, but I've seen videos of it, and I'm sure you've seen it in person.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I seen it in person in the ring where heels would want to fart around and just start screwing off, and then he would deal with that for a few minutes until he decided that he was going to put an end to the frivolities. The story goes that at Oklahoma, Hodge, like I said, never lost a match at Oklahoma ever. He beat everybody. And what he did was, Conrad, in the old ways of guys getting in a 3-point stance, and the the guy on top would grab the wrist. Well, that's all it took. That was the difference maker. Hodge was just that dominating, and that just amazing. It sounds like we're bullshitting, but we're not.
Well, and the thing is, we've only talked about the grip strength and amateur wrestling. We've not touched on the fact that he actually became a professional boxer. Before that, he won the 1958 Golden Gloves.
All right.
Besides, he's going to go pro, boxes professionally for 2 years. I think he had 9 bouts. He went 7-2. He knocked out like 71% of his opponents. He was a badass boxing. He was a badass wrestling. I just feel like this dude was made for MMA, just born way too soon. We saw guys like Matt Hughes, who respectfully didn't have near the pedigree and repertoire that Danny Hodge did. He wasn't somebody who was going to do well in the Olympics or that sort of thing. Yes, he was a great amateur wrestler, but Hodge was levels above. So to have that sort of success in those amateur sports, it just makes me feel like, man, if he was around when the MMA thing really blew up, call it 04 to now, the last 20 years, he would be talked about as the greatest mixed martial artist of all time.
Without a doubt. And it's not even an argument.
Yeah.
It's not even an argument. He just was special in that respect. He just was extraordinary. And like I said before, him having that kind heart, he had no issues asserting himself and imposing his will. That's just Danny Hodge. He was extraordinary. And I've heard stories all along about guys that tried him on for size. And Hodge he dominated them. He hurt them. And that's kind of where we see the story of Danny Hodge ending. If Danny had not had that car wreck and broke his neck, and he pulled himself back off the embankment of the place and got himself back up on the highway back in the day, he would still been. You got to believe that he still would have been doing something physical and athletic. That's just Danny Hodge. He just was. There's never anybody in the wrestling business that I can recall seeing that had the skills and the talents that Danny Hodge had. He was beating guys in D1, Division I, that that just was scary. So I've always been appreciative of the fact that Danny was my boyhood hero, that he was special, and that he was a legit superstar back before superstar was even a term.
Jim, I do want to ask you about, we've talked about the big what ifs, how much money he would have made as a UFC superstar. I keep bringing this up because when his wrestling career comes to an end, he's in his mid 40s. He's got to figure out how to make a living, and he did a great job making a living as a professional wrestler. He never made huge money though, because respectfully, he was the junior heavyweight champion. So he was never the top paid guy, but he had a comfortable living. But when his wrestling career comes to an end after that car wreck that he survived, as I understand it, he worked on the oil rigs until he was in his 70s. Man, in an alternate universe, he would have been a multi-millionaire. Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. And he also made a lot of money and comparingly. He sold waterless cookware, and he would go into a home and do cooking demonstrations. And so that was
he was a cookware salesman.
A cookware salesman.
I love that. That's old school, man.
Well, the thing about it is that he's such a household name.
Yes,
that he had no issues getting invites into the homes of many of his fans and he would put on cooking demonstrations. And so that was quite the departure from what he was known for. He was known for being violent and tough and all those things. But he was just, he was tremendous. He was just tremendous in how he conducted himself. And if you talk to anybody back in the day, I mentioned Jerry Briscoe earlier, they'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you. There was never anybody like Danny Hodge, and he scared people. He scared people. There's a good picture, great picture. Good job, Bull.
Hey, I want to ask you about that because we see Jerry Briscoe in that photo. And if you're not watching with us, what are you waiting for? Go check it out at grillingjr.com. But there's a story that Briscoe has told before that makes me have pause. I want to know if you've heard this before. I know everyone listening to this has at least heard the story of wrestling bears, and they may have even heard about this one bear named Victor.
Yeah.
And if you've ever heard about wrestling bears, you probably know that bears don't usually know how to work, so it's really hard to have an entertaining match with a bear. But as the story goes, Danny Hodge saw wrestling a bear as like the ultimate challenge.
All right.
So he gets behind the bear and starts squeezing, and the bear gives. The bear taps out. Briscoe said something like, "I've never heard a bear scream like that. I've never heard a bear scream so loud. That night, Victor was screaming, and I always wondered, why in the heck is that bear screaming so loud? That's Danny Hodge up there. I know, but man, that's a 500-pound bear." Have you heard about this? Where Danny Hodge made a bear submit?
I refereed some matches that involved Hodge wrestling a bear. And what his trick was, he would pull the short hairs out of the bear's ass. And the bear would scream in misery, but that's how it worked. You know, Hodge was he took on all challenges, and including a wrestling bear, and that just was he was undefeated as a bear wrestler without question.
As the story goes, the trainer of this bear had the bear, whose name is Victor, on a chain, like a leash. And the trainer has to ask Danny Hodge to stop. And when he lets go, the bear runs out of the ring and down the aisle and is like dragging the trainer away. This bear tried to run away and retreat from Danny Hodge. Just the visual of that is hilarious to me. Why don't you think we see that anymore? Like, why can't we have Braun Strowman versus a bear at WrestleMania, Jim?
Well, we could.
Let's do it.
Why not? What the hell? Book it, Conrad. Book it. You're the booker.
Hey, speaking of bookers, I do want to ask you about Hiro Matsuda. We all know Hiro Matsuda as perhaps being the guy who's most famous now for training Hulk Hogan, but boy, what a competitor he was himself. And he was a prime opponent for Danny Hodge for that junior heavyweight title. And I believe they had an incredible match in Shreveport. And then ultimately, when they had a match that went pretty much the entire length of an hour, maybe it eventually grew to they were doing 90-minute matches and things like that. But there was one legendary one that aired on television. And as the story goes, it's one of the matches where you started to really hone your craft as a broadcaster. Do I have that right? Or what really happened with that story of Hodge and Matsuda and you do a commentary?
They had a program, Hodge and Hero, and two classier guys you could never meet. They just were amazing. And Hero was just a class personified, much like Danny was. So they had great respect for each other. And they swapped the title back and forth a few times. I remember as a kid watching essentially an hour match on television of a 1 hour show that when it was all said and done, I cried because my guy got beat. Hodge got beat by Hiro Matsuda. And if Matsuda had not been such a great technical wrestler, it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked. Hodge was over that strong. So I had there's so many great memories of Danny Hodge, and I'm just lucky that I lived in a generation where Danny Hodge was relevant, and he just was a special human being. There's nobody. You go back in other sports and look at how he represented his business in a good way, in a powerful way, with classy. Hodge was one of those guys that, when we go on the road, he always was in a coat and tie, just was class personified. And I love Danny Hodge. I love him to this very day. And he's been away from us for quite some time now. But I love Danny Hodge, and he was special to me.
I'm glad that we're giving you a chance to talk about how special Danny Hodge was to your career and just your life and friendship and mentorship. I do want to talk about this crazy car accident that he had, because just even the story of that,
Yeah.
it's like out of a movie. But before we do that, let's hear a word from BlueChew. All right, boys, excited to talk to you about one of our day one sponsors, and one that I know JR and I personally believe in a whole lot, and you will too. We're talking BlueChew. Now listen, I don't know if you've heard the news, but BlueChew has upped their game. I'm talking about BlueChew Max. It's arrived, and it now combines the active ingredients of both Viagra and Cialis into one chewable. This is like a hot tag for your wiener. These guys are the tag team specialists. This is a combo that acts fast and it lasts. So you'll be the 60-minute man. Let's go Broadway. Guys, you need to be ready when she needs it, and you can now get your first month of BlueChew free. That's right. Great sex is just a few clicks away. All you got to do is sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. BlueChew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part is it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. How do you beat that? I'm a big believer in BlueChew. I know you will be too. What are you waiting for? Go check it out right now. Make your life easier by getting harder, and discover your options at BlueChew.com. We've got a special deal for our listeners right now. You can actually try your first month of BlueChew free when you use the promo code JR. Just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code JR. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we want to thank BlueChew for sponsoring today's podcast and JR's wiener. What do you think about the little slide whistle there at the end, Jim? That was
that
real hard.
That Bull Ramus is just on top of his game today. God bless him.
Let's talk about Danny Hodge. March 14th, 1976 is a disastrous day for Mr. Hodge. He's only 43 years old, and he's just wrestled in the main event in Houma, Louisiana. He's going to leave around 11 o'clock at night, and he's got a 5-hour drive ahead of him as he makes his way to Monroe, Louisiana. Hodge, of course, is very tired through the drive because it's literally the middle of the night.
Right.
But he's continuing to drive. And in those days, whenever he would get tired, he would talk to people on the CB radio just to try to keep him awake. Talk about a throwback. And it was around 3:30 a.m. And according to Hodge, the last thing he remembers was reaching down to turn the heater up because it's a cold night here in Louisiana. And he's just about 30 miles out of his destination, Monroe, Louisiana, when he falls asleep. And he wakes up as his Volkswagen station wagon was, much like in some of his infamous ribs, going off the highway. But this time it was real. He'd fallen asleep, and the car is now off the road. Ultimately, the station wagon flips twice, and it hits the end of a bridge and falls into a river upside down. This is where Danny Hodge has woken up here. He's knocked silly, but he is conscious, and he knows he's hurt his neck, and he's immediately knowing that his teeth have been broken because his mouth is filling with blood. Every part of his body is hurting, and he's trying to think, how the hell am I going to get out of this river? Part of the windshield was shattered. He's fighting to stay conscious because he's clearly concussed. but he knows he's about to drown. So he's literally fighting for his own survival. And he punches as hard as he can. And thankfully, he's a Golden Gloves boxer. So he's able to punch a hole in the windshield big enough for him to get out of the car. But that's when he realizes he can't control his neck or keep his head up. And he's using his left hand to keep his neck upright. And he manages to get through this small opening in the windshield that he's absolutely shattered. And he's going to use his right arm to start swimming to shore. He uses a guardrail to pull himself up out of the water, and a truck driver manages to see that, hey, there's a guy who needs help, and he pulls over. And the driver of the truck recognizes him immediately and drives him to a hospital in Monroe, Louisiana. His neck is, in fact, broken. He has to have immediate surgery to remove bone from his hip and fuse it at the base of his neck. Of course, this means he's alive, but unfortunately, his wrestling career is over. This story of a guy surviving a crash like that. I mean, think about not being able to control your neck, and you have to hold it up and punch yourself out of a windshield underwater in the river and get out of there so you don't drown, and then swim with one hand to the shore, pull yourself up by a guardrail, and as luck would have it, a truck driver recognizes you. Danny Hodge's life is a movie, isn't it, Jim?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm surprised that somebody hasn't already produced that film. It would have been a great movie, because all stuff leading into his Olympics, he's a gold medal winner. He just was extremely talented, and his stories just kept getting more and more realistic, shall we say, Conrad. He just there's just nobody like him. And so and in today's world of thespianism, is that a word? I think it might be. But anyway, in any event, Danny would have been the subject of a great movie, to say the least. And going from all the things he went through, his neck being broken, him recovering from that was just nothing short of extraordinary. He just was he was Superman. Hodge was Superman. And I'll always go to my grave thinking that's to be the case.
There's so many great wrestlers through history. I mean, most people believe Sanderson to be the greatest amateur wrestler of all time. He's 159-0, won 4 NCAA titles, won an Olympic gold medal. How do you argue with that? But Hodge, when he was at Oklahoma, as you mentioned, he's 46-0. He does that between 55 and 57. He's got 36 pins and a higher pin percentage than any other candidate on that greatest ever list. I mean, it's really hard to imagine how dominant he was, but how about this stat? During his 3 years of wrestling, college amateur wrestling, that is, he's so dominant that he's never taken down even once from a standing position.
Right.
Something that I don't think I've ever heard for any other wrestler in history, that never taken down from a standing position. It's crazy.
Nobody ever took Danny off his feet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, and again, it's a matter of the great competition. The Division I competition was what it was, and he just was special. He changed the game. Did Danny Hodge? He changed the game, and I'll always love him for that. And he was such a nice man to me. And there's pictures out there where I was in Perry, standing beside his statue, and just it was one of my proudest days of my career that I got to make that trip to Perry. Perry was north of Norman, and Danny was closer to Oklahoma State than he was to OU. But he made his reputation at Oklahoma, and nobody else is ever like him. Period. In the story.
He had 25 pins in a row, which just sounds crazy. And the only reason the streak came to an end is his opponent in this tournament. Every time Hodge would grab him, he would scream to the referee, "He's hurting me." So it would be stopped. Ultimately, Hodge won the match, but it wasn't a pin like it should have been. So to prove a point, eventually Hodge takes him down, face down, and sits on top of him and puts his arms out and says, "Is this what you want to see in wrestling?" I think it's interesting that it almost feels like he is a man playing a boy's game. He's a man among boys here.
Oh, I think so. I think that's a good analogy without question. He just was special. I mean, there's just nobody else like him. There's never been anybody like him since or before. He just was absolutely an amazing competitor, and Danny loved to compete. He loved to compete, and that also went over to his pro career. You know, he didn't want to have anybody take advantage of him, and they didn't. Never. And he wrestled some tough old shooters back in his day, but he was just an amazing competitor. It's just hard to believe that we got to enjoy what his career while it lasted, and because nobody else ever did anything quite like Danny Hodge.
One of the all-time best, and we hope that if you are my age or younger and you're not super familiar with Danny Hodge's accomplishments, you've learned a little bit today. I agree with you, Jim. This should be a movie. I hope they make it one day. I'm really proud that you got to know him, and I know it had to be touching to you back in 2012 when WWE had Jim Ross Appreciation Night in Oklahoma City, and Hodge was there.
All
I mean,
right.
how many people can say that they were a personal friend of an absolute icon like this? Man, what a character.
There's a picture from Perry standing in front of his statue. And you notice that I was very tepid about shaking hands with him because he loved to play that rib of shaking hands with somebody and hurting them. And he'd play with the grip a little bit and scare the shit out of you. But that was just Danny. He didn't mean anything bad about it. That's just the way he was. And I just love the guy. I loved him. I've never met anybody in wrestling ever like Danny Hodge, ever.
Boys and girls, that'll do us this week on Grilling JR. Jim and I are fired up because next weekend is WrestleMania. We know that Jim has a full dance card. He'll be at WrestleCon the 17th through the 20th. Make your plans to go see him at WrestleCon.com. Now, if you're not in Vegas and you're going to be at home watching on Peacock like I am, well, I encourage you, go out of your way right now to go check out jrsbbq.com. Because I have it on good authority. If you place your order today, you'll have it in time for WrestleMania. And WrestleMania this year is later than ever. We're late April. So it's grilling season, folks. You got two types of barbecue sauce. You got hot sauce. You got all-purpose seasoning. You got Chipotle ketchup. You got main event mustard. And more autographed collectibles than you can shake a stick at. I like to say it's something for everybody, Jim. And it's available now at jrsbbq.com.
And it costs nothing to look. You can look all you want. It's all free. And there you see some signed trading cards, signed books, signed action figures. It's just a cool situation. And I appreciate your time and your efforts on our behalf of just getting this. I'm trying to collect my thoughts.
We're proud you being a part of us here and listening to Grilling JR, and hope you'll continue to support the show. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications bell right now at grillingjr.com. And as you're getting fired up for the next big wrestling extravaganza, there's nothing that brings us together more than wrestling and a little barbecue. Look it up at jrsbbq.com, unless you're actually in Vegas, and then by God, go see him. He's at the Westgate for WrestleCon. Jim, this was a blast. I love talking about topics that you're passionate about, and I know you're passionate about Danny Hodge, so this checked all my boxes today, man.
I appreciate that, Conrad. I appreciate your indulging us. And many listening to the show have never heard of Danny Hodge.
That's right.
And so I'm a major fan of Hodge, and I just I wish he could have lived a little longer.
No, we all do.
Yeah, it's wonderful, wonderful man.
Well, stay tuned, boys and girls. Next week, we're going to be talking about Sean Waltman. And of course, we'll be talking about all things WrestleMania next week, right here on Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
And we'll see everybody in Las Vegas at WrestleCon. It's going to be fun. We expect big crowds to be with us on hand, and there's just nothing like meeting the fans. I'm still a fan at heart, and I can't wait to connect with all these great fans, and it's just nothing could be better in my eyes, because when I was a kid, if I hadn't have any opportunity to go to an event like WrestleCon, would have been a dream come true, without question. So thanks very much for being with us today, folks. Conrad, you did a great job as usual, because I know this was not a topic that you were overly familiar with.
That's right.
But we appreciate your scholarly approach to the situation.
Well, we all learned a little bit about Danny Hodge, and I can't wait to sit under your learning tree next week, Jim, right here on Grilling JR. So long, everybody. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-free shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.